6 years, it sounds easy. I had promised that I would stand by him in good times, bad times, in health and in sickness. And now, exactly 6 years later, as I held a crystal glass under the dim lights of a fancy restaurant, the words that came from my husband's mouth made the whole world stop. To freedom, to being single, and to being in search. Lucas raised his glass. The metallic clink as his champagne hit the edge of mine echoed in my ears like a funeral bell. It was like the last melody played for the death of our marriage. For a moment, I couldn't understand what he had said. My lips, trying to smile, froze, and my body turned to stone. Without any shame, he theatrically pulled out a box from under the table. His mother, Barbara, was glowing with excitement, and his father, Richard, was already raising his glass with a condescending smile. "Open it, darling," Lucas said with false sweetness. "I had it specially made for you." My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid of the box. Inside was a black t-shirt. In bold white letters, it read, "6 years of disappointment." At that moment, I felt like everyone in the restaurant was staring at me. I wanted to stand up, but my feet felt nailed to the floor. My stomach churned, my head spun, and my heart. It felt like it was crushed under that text. And in that second, I understood. This wasn't a surprise. This was the final act of a plan. I was the victim of something even more painful than infidelity, than betrayal, a humiliation ceremony. Frozen in my seat, my eyes locked on Lucas's face. This was not the man I knew. The man I loved for 6 years, the one who had repeatedly told me, "I'm at my best when I'm with you." Now he had orchestrated a theatrical performance to humiliate me in front of the entire restaurant. And all the signs I had missed up until then flashed before my eyes. Lucas had changed months ago. He wasn't talking as much anymore, coming home late at night claiming he was working. When I asked, he would either complain about the office being stuffy or say he was dealing with a new client. But that night I noticed something. He smelled different, like a different perfume. I had brushed it off with the excuse of stress and kept my distance from it. At home, we hardly spoke anymore. We were like two roommates who only discussed bills in the mornings. His touch was cold, his kisses were shallow and reluctant. I kept hoping, maybe this weekend will be different. But every time, Lucas was either playing golf or going to business dinners with his father. I started talking to myself in the kitchen, just to hear a human voice. "Our 6th anniversary is coming up," I said one day with hope. "Maybe we could do something special this year. What do you think?" That moment, a smile appeared on his face. "I'll handle it," he said. "This year will be unforgettable." Unforgettable. I couldn't have imagined how painful that word would be at the time. 3 weeks ago, while doing the laundry, a receipt fell out of his pocket. I almost threw it away, but something urged me to open it. A black t-shirt, white letters, 6 years of disappointment. A written order. The date matched exactly the day Lucas said he was at work. That day, my world cracked open inside, but I couldn't act without proof. Was it betrayal or just a cruel joke? That day, in the laundry room, among old t-shirts and unwashed socks, I made a decision. I would no longer deceive myself. This man had already ended his love for me. Worse, he was planning to belittle and humiliate me. And that day, I realized I wasn't just a cheated-on wife. I had discovered the power inside the suppressed woman. That anger, which had started like a spark, now turned into a raging fire in my chest. That night, Lucas came home late. The receipt that had fallen out of his jacket pocket was still sitting in the kitchen drawer, folded like a hidden secret. Without even making eye contact, he went straight to the bathroom. He smelled different again, a fragrance that wasn't familiar, maybe even feminine. As always, after taking a shower, he silently lay beside me, turning his back to me. And when I rested my head on my pillow, I had already become someone else. I was no longer the woman who stayed silent, who always understood, who always waited in this marriage. In that moment, a new Emma was born inside me. And that Emma chose to collect evidence, not tears. The next day, before going to work, I took Lucas's credit card statements out of the drawer in the corner of the bedroom. At first, I just skimmed through the familiar expenses, but then a pattern started to emerge. On specific days each month, the name of the same chain hotel appeared. The same dates as restaurants, florists, jewelers. But I never received any flowers, any jewelry, or a romantic dinner. Every line showed that Lucas was investing in someone else, not me. My hands shook as I closed the files. My eyes caught the time. I had to leave. But now, I wasn't just a wife, I was moving like a detective. Being late for work didn't matter. The priority now was learning my own truth. For a week, I closely observed Lucas's behavior. He was checking his phone more often than usual. His smiles belonged to someone else, not me. He avoided looking into my eyes, and I analyzed every word of his internally. One day, while he was in the bathroom, he left his phone unlocked. With an instinct, my fingers reached for the screen. There was a message. D. I made a reservation for Saturday. I can't wait to see what you're wearing. D. Who was this D? That same day, I decided to rummage through Lucas's home office. At the bottom of the desk drawer, in a dusty box, I found an old phone. When I opened it, the silence inside me turned into a scream. Hundreds of messages, all conversations with D, love words, plans, hotel hours, even dreams of living together. But do you know what hurt me the most? The things written about me. I can't take it anymore. Always sacrifice, always understanding, I'm suffocating. He was describing me to someone else. These were the words that belittled my loyalty and viewed my love as a burden. That night, I got into bed with Lucas, but I was no longer his wife. I was just the woman staying by his side until my plan was complete, hiding in the shadows. I pretended to be asleep. But my mind was filled with calculations that lasted for hours. As soon as morning came, I booked an appointment online. A secret but effective divorce lawyer. Her name was Laura. She was strong, silent, and it was clear that she was someone not to be underestimated. I laid all the evidence in front of her, the t-shirt receipt, credit card statements, message screenshots, hotel reservation records. I didn't hide anything. Everything was laid out plainly. Laura remained silent for a while. Then, in her calm voice, she spoke. This is not just a divorce. This is a case that requires a strategic response to a planned humiliation. What should I do? I asked. First, protect your financial independence, she said. Open your own account. If possible, secure your personal assets. Document every move you make. This will be your greatest weapon in court. In that moment, the woman sitting in the lawyer's chair was no longer just a lawyer to me. She became the architect of my fate. I was no longer alone. I now had a plan. And most importantly, I wasn't working against time. I was working in parallel with it. When I left the office, the sky was gray, but the sun inside me was shining in a completely different way. This time, I wouldn't fall. This time, I wouldn't remain silent. This time, my revenge would come, not with screams, but with documents, strategy, and grace. Lucas had set the stage for a theater. But little did he know, when the curtains opened, the roles would already have changed. Do you know when a woman fully awakens? When all the fairy tales between her and reality burn to the ground? And I was being reborn from the ashes of that fire. I wasn't curious about Lucas anymore. I started wondering what exactly had broken him like this. How could someone you once shared breakfast with, hugged, and loved, plan to humiliate you so deliberately? This couldn't just be an individual betrayal. This was something deeper, rooted in something more. That week, I dedicated every minute left after work to my investigation. While speaking with our financial advisor, I tracked the withdrawals from our joint account. Lucas had withdrawn over $70,000 over the course of months, each transfer just below the notification limit. He had been sending them to an account in his name. But the strangest thing was what our advisor, Mark, said. He told me he was planning a big anniversary surprise. He didn't want me to send the documents to the shared email. Didn't want to spoil the surprise. Surprise! What a sweet word, right? But this was the kind of surprise that hides a knife. That night, taking advantage of Lucas being out of the house, I went up to the attic. I opened a metal cabinet, dusty and forgotten, like an archive. Inside, there were old papers, photos, and files. A small box caught my attention. It only had the word family written on it. Inside the box were yellowed photo albums, old newspaper clippings, and a few special documents. But one album, it was different from the others. Leather-bound, heavy, and the name on the cover faded. Michael. I opened it, and there he was. Lucas. But younger, smiling with braces. Next to him, a child a few years older. The same eye lines, the same jaw structure, but with a completely different energy. Beneath his name, written in shaky handwriting, it said, Michael and Amp, Lucas, Summer 2001. Michael? Who was this? Lucas had never mentioned having a brother. After 6 years of family dinners, holiday celebrations, not once had this name come up. Dozens of questions started swirling in my mind. Then, from the bottom of the box, an old newspaper clipping completely shifted everything. Michael K., local high school graduate, awarded scholarship from prestigious university. Next to it was a photo of Michael with that familiar jawline. 3 years later, another clipping. Young financial expert Michael K. joins prestigious investment firm. But then, nothing. It was as if he had vanished, disappeared. I needed more to understand this. The first person that came to mind was our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Roth. Always observant, always silent, sitting on her flowered porch next door. I took her a cake as an excuse. She greeted me with a smile. After a bit of small talk, my doubt found its voice. Did Lucas have a brother? I asked, as if I were talking about something trivial. The old woman's eyes widened suddenly. She slowly set her cup down on the table. Don't you know, Michael? She asked in a whisper. Oh dear, that boy was like a star, bright, kind, always the pride of the family. But then, everything changed. According to her, Michael had found irregularities in the family business, in Richard's accounting records. He was someone who valued honesty. When he raised his voice, he was ostracized. His name was erased from the house. Photos were removed. Everyone was told he moved abroad, but the truth was, Michael had been threatened and completely rejected by his family. Lucas? I asked. Were they close? They were inseparable as kids, Mrs. Roth said. But once Michael left, Lucas became more dependent on the family. Richard started controlling him. What university he would go to, what job he would take, who he would marry. Everything was planned. Suddenly, everything clicked. I wasn't just married to Lucas. I was married to the bride candidate the Collins family wanted. That night, as I sat alone in the living room, I typed Michael's name into a search bar, and there he was. In another city, the owner of a consultancy company that carried his name. His eyes looked like Lucas's, but his gaze was softer, more genuine. I wavered between contacting him or not, but a voice inside me said, he might understand you. I wrote a message. Hello, Michael. I'm Emma. I think there are some things we need to talk about regarding my marriage. I'd like to meet with you at a time that works for you. The reply came the next morning, Sunday, noon, Corner Cafe. And so, I took the first step to confront an ally, hidden in the shadows of the past. Maybe, like me, he was another victim, silently consumed by this family. I woke up early on Sunday morning. The traces of the sleepless night were still on my face, but there was a strange energy inside me. It wasn't fear or worry. It was the impatience of a woman who had awakened. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the exhaustion under my eyes, but in my gaze there was clarity. For the first time in a long while, I was preparing to speak to someone really speak. Without a mask, without fear, when I walked into the small cafe on the corner, I recognized him as soon as I stepped inside. Michael. He had Lucas's features, but in a strange way he was different. It was like he was cut from the same cloth, but in a completely different design. His eyes were softer, his posture more genuine. He was sitting alone at a table, looking out the window, but even then he seemed alert, like someone who lived with a sense of danger. When our eyes met, he stood up and extended his hand. Emma, he said in a simple tone, you don't look like the woman in the wedding photo. You look stronger. It wasn't a compliment. It was an observation. A true one. At that moment, I made up my mind. This man wasn't ordinary. He was hurt too. And maybe, for the first time, those wounds would create a connection. We placed our orders. After our coffee arrived, silence lingered a little longer. Then Michael leaned forward and asked directly, What happened? Did Lucas finally show his true face? I lowered my head, then looked him straight in the eye. On our anniversary, he set up a theatrical scene to humiliate me. He printed a t-shirt with 6 years of disappointment written on it. He and his mother planned everything. It was supposed to be a surprise dinner. Michael didn't even blink. But I saw his jaw tighten. "That's Barbara's work," he said. "She's an expert at humiliating people. My father is the one pulling the strings in the background. Lucas is just their pawn." "I've spent years wondering why this family never fully accepted me," I said. "Now I know why. They never wanted me. I was only accepted as long as I stayed silent, grateful, and unquestioning. But you, where were you, Michael? Why didn't anyone ever talk about you?" Michael sighed. "Because when they decided to erase me, I lost everything. My name, my company, my family. I only told the truth." Then his eyes darkened. "I found irregularities in my father's company's accounting records. I reported it. And then they dismissed me. My bank accounts were shut down. My name was erased from every system, like I never existed. My brother, he called once, but when my father spoke in the background, he said, 'I don't talk to anyone,' and hung up." A nervous tension stretched inside me. The same pattern: silence, suppression, and being ignored. "I'm just now understanding why I always felt inadequate in that house," I said. "Everything was planned. Who I would marry, what I would wear, which house I'd buy. Even I was just a side character in their script." Michael bowed his head. Then he pulled a file from his bag. "I want to help you, Emma. Not just because Lucas tried to humiliate you. Because I can't let this system harm more people." Inside the file were original company contracts, stock documents, shareholder records, and old board meeting notes. I still own 25% of the company. My father knows that, but because I haven't initiated legal action, I can't use it. I didn't want to fight this battle until now. But now, it's not just about me. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a divorce process. It was a real fight for liberation against a family. And not just for me. For Michael, too. They had tried to silence both of our voices. But now, here we were, at the same table, speaking the same truth. By the end of the day, we exchanged phone numbers. But we gave each other so much more: trust, solidarity, a shared intention to heal. And for the first time, in a gaze that didn't belong to Lucas, I felt a sense of peace fill me. As I said goodbye to Michael, it was like we had drawn up a battle plan. Maybe one day, when this battle is over, everything would begin again. Days flew by after my first meeting with Michael, but each one was full of purpose. I was a woman with a goal now. I knew what I was looking for, and I paid attention to every detail. Every day had a purpose: to protect my rights, my future, and the life within me. Yes, there was a life inside me. Everything had changed with that small pink line. I was no longer fighting only for myself, but for someone else too. I could never forget the moment I saw the test. Sitting on the bathroom floor, holding the stick with trembling hands, time seemed to stop. My eyes filled with tears, but these tears weren't from sorrow. Fear, yes. But beyond that, there was a consciousness. This child was the purest symbol of this war. And, ironically, this child was going to be born right in the middle of the Collins family's plans, but outside of their control. I called Michael. My voice was shaking. But he, without interrupting my words or giving any direction, simply asked, "What do you want to do, Emma?" In that moment, I understood. For the first time in my life, someone was asking me what I wanted. Not treating me like I wasn't there, not making the decision for me, but leaving it up to me. "I want to have him," I said. "But I don't want to raise him in their world." Michael's voice was soft but firm. "Then this isn't just our plan. It's a plan for the future." Everything had changed now. The strategy was clearer. I had quietly formed an army with my lawyer Laura, my financial advisor Vanessa, and my real estate consultant Malcolm. Each one meticulously planned what I needed to do and when. Without Lucas's knowledge, I legally transferred half of our joint account to my own account. I also secured the money from my inheritance. The value of our home had increased surprisingly. Malcolm was ready for a quick sale. Thanks to enough documented, signed paperwork, We could start the transactions without Lucas's approval because he had already unknowingly given it. Meanwhile, Michael was fighting his battle on his side, with the stock certificates, partnership agreements, and board meeting notes from the Collins Company. He was preparing for a lawsuit. In his eyes, there was not only anger, but responsibility now. "This child," he said to me, gently placing his hand on my stomach, "will be born breaking their chains." And we had started to form a connection beyond just understanding each other. At first, unknowingly, then consciously, our contact grew. One day, on a rainy evening, we were going over the documents in Michael's apartment. The rain was hitting the windows hard, lightning was tearing through the sky, and we were looking into each other's eyes. A silent moment came. The documents didn't speak, nor the plans. Only the heart. He held my hand. "Don't leave," he said. "Stay here tonight." I stayed. And that night, it wasn't a night of revenge, nor an escape. That night, two wounded souls came together, decided to heal and let go of the burdens of the past together. For the first time, I felt not erased, not incomplete, but valuable in a man's arms. The next morning, as the sun rose, I had a clear decision inside me. It was time to take the final steps of the plan. I texted Megan. You remember her, the waitress who gave me the first clue. I needed that young woman with her honesty who had opened the door for me. Everything had to be set up at the restaurant where she worked, the scene of that anniversary night. We analyzed the layout of the place, the positioning of the tables, Lucas's family's favorite corner, everything. And we decided that night would not play out the way they planned, but the way I wrote it. Michael's lawyer had prepared all the documents. We were going to present the return of the son they had ignored in the past to the Collins family, with official papers. Documents proving his 25% stake in the company, the legal consequences of his father excluding him, all the bank receipts. They were like bullets. But I had something even stronger in my hands. A small, thin test stick. And the new bloodline it represented. A Collins they couldn't control. Megan and I did a rehearsal. The timing of when she would serve at the table, the eye contact, Michael's entrance on stage. We calculated everything to the second. That night, I wasn't stepping onto a stage for a play. I was stepping into a courtroom. My defense was ready. My documents were in hand. My posture was firm. And I wasn't afraid anymore. As I made my final preparations, I looked in the mirror. I chose a deep blue dress. Not the burgundy one Barbara had imposed. I made a simple bun with my hair. I wore the pearls my mother had left me. This wasn't just any night. This was the night I would take back my name after 6 years. Michael called one last time. "Are you ready?" I was silent. Then, with a real smile on my lips, I answered, "I'm ready. And this time, the stage is mine." Our anniversary. I was preparing to sit at the same table with the man I had once held hands with 6 years ago and said, in good times, in bad. But this time, the ceremony held a different meaning. It was the ceremony of goodbye. A declaration of freedom. A victory night of a battle. That evening, Lucas brought me coffee in bed. There was that glint of fake interest on his face. "We have a reservation at 7:30, he said. "The mothers are very excited." I smiled. "Me too," I said. But my smile wasn't fake, because every detail of that night was clear in my mind. Which words I would choose, which documents I would pull out, when Michael would walk in. Everything was in my hands now. As I pulled up the zipper of my dress, I looked at myself in the mirror once again. There was no fear in my eyes, only clarity. I grabbed my bag. Inside were the evidence, joint account documents, company share papers, and that little velvet box, a token Michael had handed me last night. I didn't know what was inside, but my hand trembled when I touched it. "Open it when the time comes," he had said. When we entered the restaurant, the atmosphere was quiet. Barbara, in her usual burgundy dress, was sitting at the corner table. Her smile was wide, but as cold as ice. Richard stood, greeting us with a firm handshake. As we sat down, I felt like we were waiting for the beginning of a play. The tension hung in the air. From the very first moments, Barbara tried to dominate the night. Club gossip, market analyses, supposed high society jokes. But I didn't engage. I just watched. I glanced at my watch. Lucas's leg under the table was shaking. He was excited. He thought he was about to celebrate his victory. And then he signaled. He raised his glass, tapped his knife against the champagne glass. That familiar cling sound, this time not to bring me down but to invite me to the stage. "To 6 years," Lucas said, his voice clear enough to echo through every corner of the restaurant. "And now, to being free, single, and in search." Heads turned at the surrounding tables. Eyes were on us. The surprise everyone had been waiting for was beginning. Barbara wore a huge smile. Even Richard was smiling with the tip of his nose. Lucas, from under the table, pulled out the box. Black velvet, custom-made. He placed it in the center of the table. "I have a special gift for you," he said with feigned politeness. I opened the box, and there it was, a black t-shirt. In white letters, 6 years of disappointment. The restaurant went silent. The thing they had expected had come. In the next scene, my humiliation was on display. But I smiled. I slowly stood up, opened my bag, raised my water glass. "What a lovely gift, Lucas," I said. My voice was clear, calm and cold. It really came at just the right time. Because I also want to make a small announcement tonight. Eyes turned to me. Lucas's smile froze. Barbara's eyebrow raised. Richard sat up straighter in his chair. "First of all, thank you for being here tonight," I began. "For 6 years, I did everything I could to be part of this family. But I was never enough, was I? Because, in truth, I was never wanted." Barbara tried to interrupt. "Emma, it would be better if you didn't interrupt me," I said, and pulled out the first document. "You've been systematically withdrawing money from our joint account for months, Lucas, just below the notification limit. How clever. But you're no longer the only one in this account." A murmur rose. The waiters froze. People at the nearby tables were eavesdropping. "I've sold our house," I continued, "thanks to the documents you signed without reading while approving the business papers. The notary signed the sale agreement today." "You can't do this," Lucas yelled. "I already did. With your signature." Then I pulled out another document from my bag. "These are the bank documents where I secured my share. And here comes my favorite part." I turned my eyes toward the door and gently nodded. Michael walked in. He strode in confidently, and as he moved between the guests, heads turned toward him. Lucas's face went pale. Barbara's breath caught in her throat. "Hello, Mom, Dad, little brother," Michael said. "Surprise?" That moment would be unforgettable. It was the moment when a man, erased for years, reclaimed his own surname. Michael took out the documents from his bag. "I still legally own 25% of the company. And with these documents, I will prove that the company was unlawfully transferred. A lawsuit is being filed tomorrow morning." Richard stood up. "You can't do this to us." "You did this to me years ago," Michael said, locking his eyes with his father. "Now it's my turn." Then I pulled out the last item from my bag, a small box. I opened it. Inside was a pregnancy test. And staring into their eyes, I said, "I'm pregnant. Michael and I are together. And this child will not be born into your cruel system. It will be raised with love." Silence. The people in the restaurant didn't clap, but a hum spread. Shockwaves hit the table. Barbara's eyes filled with tears, but these weren't tears of regret. They were filled with rage. "You planned this. This was a game from the start," she said, sobbing. "No, Barbara," I said. "You set up a game. I just took the stage back." I pulled the t-shirt out of the box, folded it, slowly placed it in front of Barbara. "Let this be your memento. Maybe one day you'll learn what it means to feel shame." I took Michael's hand. His eyes were shining, and in that moment, I was free from everything behind me. As we walked out the door, Lucas's voice came from behind. "This isn't over." I didn't stop. I only turned around once. "For you, yes, Lucas. It's over. I'm free." And hand in hand, we walked into the night. The masks had fallen. On stage, there were only truths now. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Because with every new story, we heal together. We grow stronger together. Share your thoughts with us, because every voice can inspire someone else to be free.